New book from Peabody and Emmy Award-winning journalist and our colleague, NBC correspondent Antonia Hilton, about the history of one of the nation's last segregated asylums.
In March of 1911, officials marched 12 black men who were suffering with mental illness into the heart of a forest in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. They cleared roads, they poured cement, they harvested tobacco, and helped to build an entire asylum. And at the end of construction, they were among its very first patients.
Shalom. I would like to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I would like to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to all you sister Akim, pushing this word across the four corners of the world. And after this video, you're going to see another video of MSNBC covering a small segment of this book called Madness, Race, and Insanity in a Jim Crow Asylum, which was written by Antonia Hilton, a so-called black woman. So within this book, she uncovered the gut-wrenching conditions of a Maryland segregated asylum in 1911, where you had so-called black men were forced to build their own mental treatment facility. And those same so-called black men were the asylum's first patients. Then that mental asylum grew into thousands of so-called black Americans. And you should already know that the staff were so-called white people, where they were also understaffed. So you can just imagine the inhumane acts that was going on throughout that mental asylum throughout those years, because it just closed in 2004. And throughout that video in the comment section, I was just reading different comments about it. And you had one in particular of a so-called black woman stated how the elders used to tell her, you do not want to go to Crownsville, Maryland, referring to where that mental asylum were once at. And how she stated that if you're near that property, it has a very eerie feeling. And this is your history, America, which is codified within the scriptures as Babylon the Great. And all this dirt, your dark history, your lies, your inhumane acts, evil and wickedness that you have done, especially upon the Most High's chosen people, the biblical Israelites, who are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Hispanics, and Native Americans, everything's coming out to the light within the closing of your chapter within rulership, referring to the biblical Edomites, who are the so-called Caucasian race in today's time. So everything's coming out to the light, which is biblical prophecy. So before this horror movie or this chapter ends, Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai is bringing everything out to the forefront. So therefore, they can be justified by terrorizing America and bringing it to an end, along with you so-called white people's rulership, who are the biblical Edomites. And that takes me right to Luke 8:17. For nothing is secret that should not be made manifest, neither anything hid that should not be known and come abroad. Hence, segregated mental asylums, and not just within Maryland. You read different comments, you'll see they were scattered out throughout the different states of America. And again, you should already know our people are suffering from inhumane acts done within those facilities. And the spirit of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is so beautiful. It's like every time our people want to go asleep, like spiritually, and want to forget our past within this racist country, then Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai keep placing the spirit upon these different movie directors, these different authors, these different journalists, these different historians, and the list goes on, to keep stirring up that pot, reminding our people to highlight the cruel acts that these so-called white people did upon our people within this same country, that nowadays they want us to come all together and be equal, when you are starting to realize that your beloved country is falling. But it's too late for all that. So for nothing is secret that should not be made manifest, neither anything hid that should not be known and come abroad. So again, the spirit of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is beautiful. And a part of Yahweh Shai's testimony is the spirit of prophecy, which is the truth of the matter. And as it says within 2 Ezra 7:44, how intemperance is at an end and infidelity is cut off, righteousness is grown, and truth is sprung up. So the truth of the scriptures is condemning America, and along with America's dark history of what you did to our people, who are considered as the apple of the Most High's eye. As it stated within Zechariah 2:8, how you touch the apple of the Most High's eye. And once you go to the word eye, it goes into pupil, which is the round opening in the center of the iris. So if someone point you in the eye with their finger, which is a very sensitive area, then of course your eye will become irritated. And that's exactly how Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua feels about our people when these other heathen nations mistreat us. But you powerful Edomites within America and you other powerful heathen nations, you forgot that you touched a made people. And of course across the four corners of the world as well. But to mainly highlight America, which is Babylon the Great according to the Holy Scriptures, America is the focal point of end time prophecies. And that takes me right to Habakkuk 2:16. Thou art filled with shame for glory, drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. Hence this book called Madness, Race, and Insanity in a Jim Crow Asylum by this Israelite woman by the name of Antonia Hilton. And where the Lord placed the spirit upon her to shed light in the disturbing practices that was going on throughout this Maryland segregated asylum. And it was another comment that caught my attention on this video you're going to see at the end of this video of someone sharing their story of their grandfather was within one of these segregated mental asylums like for many, many years. And they buried him there and never told his family what happened or what occurred. And you had someone to respond to that comment. And my speculation is a so-called white person. If you do write a book about this, bring it out in a positive way. Like that doesn't even make sense. Because America's dark history is truly a testament of you so-called white people's behaviors and your patterns. Like deep down, this is who you really are. You try to disguise it, be nice, try to smile, speak to us and stuff like that in public. However, you cannot erase that sinister, diabolical spirit that Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua spiritually customized you as. And now the whole world is seeing your shameful acts that you try to cover up. But the Most High just keep bringing up all this dirt to the forefront. Now everybody's seeing your shameful spewing. Now everybody's seeing your nakedness, which goes into all of your hidden agendas, your dark history, your secret counsels and wicked devices. It's being made manifested within these latter times. So thou art filled with shameful glory, drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. And dear America, this is your history. And that's how we know that these same Edomites in today's time, that same spirit goes back into the spirit of Cain, which was considered as a fugitive within the scriptures. You try to run and disguise yourself from the truth. But now all of this evidence is being brought to the judge, which is Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua, by all of these different witnesses, starting from the true and righteous prophets on down to these whistleblowers, on down to these truthers, on down to these different movie directors, historians, journalists, authors, and the list goes on. And now you biblical Edomites are being prosecuted within these latter times. And that's so beautiful. So the cup of the Lord's right hand should be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. And that takes me right to Revelation 18 verse 2. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is falling, which is referencing to America, is falling and has become the habitation of devils. And that ties in with Baruch 4:35, how it goes into how she, referencing to America, shall be inhabited of devils for a great time. And those devils is linking up with Isaiah 34:11, going into about the desert owl, the cormorant, the bitter, and the list goes on, shall possess it. So these different desert-like creatures will be the new tenants within America after the nuclear destruction of America, and also by the fire that Yahushua along with the chariots are going to bring upon this place as well. So Babylon the Great is fallen, and it's become the habitation of devils, and the hole of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Which again goes into Isaiah the 34th chapter about the cormorant, the bitter, the owl, the raven shall dwell in it. Verse 3, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, which goes into America's democracy, aka that westernization, which has spiritually intoxicated all these nations around the four corners of the world. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and that fornication really goes into that spiritual adultery, aka immorality. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Verse 4, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. And that voice is going to come out of those chariots within the Hebrew tongue. And the only ones who are going to hear that voice are the elect of the nation of Israel. Verse 5, for her sins, again referencing to America, have reached unto heaven, and Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua have remembered her iniquities. Again, the testimony of Yahushua is the spirit of prophecy. So all of these testimonials is being brought forth as evidence upon America's dark history and upon the rulership of you Edomites. Like everybody's finding out that really you're the wicked one, or you the great Satan, how they refer to you as in these other countries. Like everybody within this world are soon finding out that you are the main problem. You are that cancer that has to be eradicated. And that's the impending judgment that Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua has set for you. Verse 6, reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she had filled to her double. So everything that was done upon us as a people, the biblical Israelites, by perfect balance, everything's going to be done back unto you biblical Edomites, all in righteousness. Like we're not going to be sodomizing you like you did to our forefathers. Everything's going to be done in righteousness in the eyes of Yahweh Yahushua. Verse 7, how much she had glorified herself and lived deliciously, and how was that? Through the horrible acts of slavery. Down here within the South, many years ago, they referred cotton as the white gold. Like you so-called white people really benefited off the blood, sweat, tears, the agony of the biblical Israelites. And throughout our harsh slave labor, that is how you built this great empire, America, which is again Babylon the Great. So with that being said, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she said in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Verse 8, therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burnt with fire. Hence World War III. And also the second coming of Yahushua along with his host of angels. As is stated within the book of Isaiah 66 verse 15, how the Lord will come with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. And by fire and by his sword, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua will plead with all flesh. And the slain of the Lord shall be many. So therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burnt with fire. For strong is the Lord Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua who judgeth her. So just like we as the biblical Israelites, who are the chosen people unto the Most High Yahweh through his unbegotten Son Yahushua, we had to pay for our dues. Even our King David, for disobeying the Most High's laws, statutes, and commandments. So if the Lord did this to his chosen people, again, who are the apple of his eye, then how much more he's going to do the same thing, even much more worse acts, upon a people who he have indignation with forever, which are you biblical Edomites, you so-called white people in today's time. So therefore, America, this is your dark history. And with that, hopefully you all edify, you all stay strong, keep pushing forward. Shalom.
Thousands of black patients came through that overcrowded, understaffed hospital, and many died there. The new book is titled Madness, Race and Insanity in a Jim Crow Asylum, and Antonia joins us now. Antonia, it's great to see you. Congratulations on this book.
Thank you.
It is a at once extraordinary and gut-wrenching and appalling story to read through. So tell a little bit more about what you said there, which is how this came to be in the first place. Those people who were, as you said, marched into the woods in 1911 to build their own asylum.
Well, at the time, the Jim Crow system really impacted everything, even hospitals, although that's not usually the site we think of. We think of water fountains and schools, but mental health care too. And so the state of Maryland decided that Black patients were the only patients who would have to build themselves a therapeutic facility before they could benefit from it. So they bring groups of patients into the woods and they build what you just saw there from the ground up and then become the patients. And at its height, there were 2,700 patients, hundreds of employees living there. And in those early years, it was all Black patients, all white staff. It's not until the 50s and 60s that you start to see real change as more and more Black Marylanders get opportunities to work there and start to slowly change the culture and change healthcare outcomes. And this story really takes you through it all from 1911 all the way up to present day. It didn't close until 2004, which is within all of our lifetimes.
Yeah.
And I think people don't think about that often, how close this history is.
And part of the power of this book is it is the story of America along the way, too, which is to say that there was this idea out there after emancipation that these Black men and women had gone mad in some way, that they were vagrants in America and they needed to be institutionalized.
Doctors wrote about this stuff openly. They would debate in medical journals. They would talk about it at conferences. This idea that emancipation had been a mistake and Black people couldn't handle the responsibility of being free and dealing with everyday life. And that's what informed the decision to create these separate institutions and then treat those institutions very differently than they treated all of the other similar hospitals around the state of Maryland. And what I show in the book is that even as attitudes change, that initial founding and all of the kinds of logistical and financial decisions they make because of those beliefs at the outset, they continue to impact the hospital all the way until 2004. It's underfunded continually, even as people come and they're doing everything they can to save patient lives. They have less resources and less support from the government because of some of the decisions that were made in the earliest days.
Antonia, Simone has a question for you in Washington. Simone?
Antonia, congratulations. I am so excited about this book, and it couldn't come at a better time. You talk about how the hospital closed in 2004, but just recently the hospital has been reimagined, if you will, and reopened in Maryland, and it's not lost on me that it's happening under the leadership of a Black governor, the only Black governor in the country, Wes Moore. Talk about Crownsville 2.0, for lack of a better term, if you will. I know you got a tour of the facility.
We did. NBC got the exclusive tour of the entire property just a few days ago. And this is really unlike any other public historical project. Over the course of the next few years, Anne Arundel County is going to turn that land that you just saw there from this sad chapter from the dilapidated buildings that you saw into a massive memorial park that people from all over the state and outside of the state will be able to come and enjoy. There will be mental health treatment spaces, biking paths, public gardens that kids and elderly community members are going to be able to use. And the entire idea is to finally have a true space of healing and to not run away from, not shy away from, but to recognize what truly happened there. So they're going to have storyboards and a small museum. You know, all of this is going to take several years' time, but the park and the actual green space side of this should be available relatively soon. And there's immense excitement on the ground there in Maryland. And I think people have a lot of questions for Governor Moore and also for County Executive Pittman, who's working with him on all of this, about what this could mean for Maryland. And they're taking people's feedback. They want to know, what do people believe a mental health treatment space, a community space like this, what could it actually look like? What could it represent to you?
So that's certainly encouraging for the future. But let's take a look one more time back into the past. I mean, it's such an extraordinarily racist setup. But tell us about the day-to-day horrors that some of the people who were there had to experience.
Well, in those earliest years, patients were really left on these overcrowded wards. They were left to sleep on straw ticks. They were out on open porches often. There was very little in the way of actual therapy. And the institution was notorious for racial violence, so staff on patient violence. And in the 50s and 60s, you start to see that shift because some of the very first, mostly Black women arrive, and they start to stop white colleagues from doing that to the patients. They start to bring in clothing and shoes and belts for patients who had been left unclothed for years. And they start to investigate their mistreatment and call their family members. I mean, very simple acts of kindness, right? None of what I just described is rocket science. But they started calling family and getting those patients reconnected with loved ones so that they could get out. People were there for 20, 30, 40 years in some cases, something that we can't really imagine doing today, but this is a very recent history.
You've done such a great job to shine a light on a story most Americans don't know anything about, which, as I said, tells the difficult history of the country.